Hello, hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. Good morning if you're on the West Coast. Good afternoon if you're on the East Coast. Very excited for today's training. You feel like you could level up a little bit in your school's organization, then you'll definitely find some value in today's session. If you have the ability to turn your cameras on, would love to see your beautiful faces. Let's go ahead and dive in. As always, we will email the recording as well as the keynote out before the end of the day. So definitely take notes. But if you're interested, especially in some of the chat GPT stuff that I'm going to share with you today to really help you level up organization in your SOPs, your playbooks, you're going to get access to the keynote that has everything in there. Let's do this. Scale of 1 to 5. 1, you're a white belt. 5, you're a black belt. All right. 1, you're a white belt. 5, you're a black belt. How would you rate the organizational systems that you currently have in your school? Is it like white belt level out of 1, black belt level out of 5, maybe somewhere in between? Chris says 2, 2. All right. Seeing a lot of 2s in there. Cool. Well, hopefully by the end of this, Mr. Hurtado, 4, awesome. Hopefully by the end of this, you're going to have a couple of different takeaways that'll help you increase that number. I'm going to go over 10 different takeaways. If you try to implement all 10 of these, you are going to set yourself up for failure. So when you're taking notes, the ones that really jump out to you the most, I would star them. And that's really where you should put your focus on. All right. So let me go ahead, share the screen. Let's dive in. And let me just get the chat up here and the participants. Awesome. All right, here we go. Own the day. I called this Own the Day because I'm sure all of us have experienced at some point, days where you just feel like you absolutely crushed it in the school. And then there's other days where you're not even sure what happened the last 8 hours and you feel like you got absolutely nothing done. And there are specific systems that you can implement to make sure by the end of the day, not only you feel like you own the day, but also your team feels that way. All right. Anybody that's owned a business, I think we've all been there where we feel really, really overwhelmed. And, oftentimes to not feel overwhelmed, we have to feel comfortable delegating. And that D word, delegate, can be very difficult for some owners because maybe there's a lack of accountability systems that you have in place, which makes you feel like you don't really want to delegate it. And I think we all want to feel confident when we are delegating. So these 10 systems, it's not just about organization, it's also about accountability for yourself and for your team. So we're going to go over 10 productivity systems so you can better organize your, daily operations, increase productivity. I don't know anybody that doesn't want to be able to get more done in a shorter period of time and just allow you to have a structured, high performance environment. Okay. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Chris Rodriguez, lifelong martial artist, started in Taekwondo when I was 8 years old and then fell in love with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I founded Gracie Pack MMA back in 2012, which I actually sold earlier this year to be able to solely focus on GrowPro Agency. We are the industry's largest digital marketing agency, helping schools acquire more students through digital marketing efforts. I'm also Maya's marketing consultant, and I am a mom to a really, really cute boy named Cruz, a wife, and I absolutely love pickleball. Anybody played pickleball? Let me know in the chat. Have you ever played pickleball? Yes or no? It's a really cool sport. It's a lot of fun. Any pickleball enthusiasts, or am I the only one? Not seeing anybody in the chat. And yes, Mr. Hurtado, we did lose 2 weeks with 2 hurricanes back to back. if you know anybody in Florida, reach out to your Florida friends because it has been incredibly stressful the last few weeks, especially for small business owners. I mean, the day after Milton, it kind of felt like The Walking Dead going on in Tampa. There's still people without power. Our internet actually in our house went out a few days after the hurricane, and there are millions of people without internet. I was trying to work from home this morning, and our internet still wasn't up. So now I am here in the office, lost our front door. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, I do see there a couple of pickleball enthusiasts. So if you're ever in Tampa, would love to play with you guys. All right. So this is the agenda. These are the 10 productivity strategies. We're going to talk about categorizing tasks because, I mean, if you really think about how many processes there are in your school, I mean, there's literally hundreds and hundreds of processes. Just think about opening your school, right? When it's time to go to the school, open the school, every single little step from, unlocking the doors, turning the lights on, setting the AC, everything that you have to do. There's hundreds and hundreds of processes. And we've got to have a way to categorize it so that our team understands what their responsibilities are, and you can also hold them accountable for those, okay? We're going to talk a little bit about breaking the monotony and how you basically structure the week so it's not like every single day is the same thing over and over again. Once we have those tasks categorized, we got to assign times to do those tasks. So we're going to talk about the best way to do that and then how to hold the team accountable. This is especially helpful if you don't want to be in your school 5 or 6 days a week. Maybe you do. And if you do, that's awesome. I just want you to have the choice to not have to be in there. And I think that's a fear for a lot of owners that if you're not in the school, how are you going to know whether or not things are getting done, right? And then how we can get everybody on the same page week to week, month to month, quarter to quarter. I'll talk to you about my daily wrap-up process. This was a really big game changer when I decided I wanted to be an off-site owner, and it really helped me with my kind of own anxiety and stress. So we'll talk about how to wrap up the day, how you can close open loops. I'm going to share with you my system for staying organized personally, and it's actually something we've taught our entire team to leverage. And it was really cool. We had our quarterly all hands on deck meeting yesterday. So every quarter we get the entire company together and we review the previous quarter, talk about where we're at now, and then set our plan and our vision for the next quarter. And we also share wins. And there were quite a few people whose wins was around this closing open loops for more brain power because I trained my team how to do it. We're going to talk about how to make sure your team has access to everything they need, the best system for SOPs, and I am going to cut your time probably, if it takes you an hour to create an SOP, I'm going to be able to cut that down to 10 minutes for you with leveraging ChatGPT with some very specific prompts. So very excited to share that with you. And then how to communicate like a professional. I'm personally not a huge fan of group text messages. If you have a family like mine, they love getting like 10 of us on a group text message. And sometimes that's how a lot of businesses communicate with their employees. And there's just a much more professional way to do that. All right. Shelly says that'd be amazing, Chris, cutting down time on SOP. I got you, ma'am. So that'll be number 9. Okay. So, there's always going to be a never-ending to-do list. The work is never done, guys. It's just not. One of my favorite quotes is your business is broken, and if things continue to go well, it always will be. You're always going to have problems in the school. There is going to always be challenges you're going to have to overcome, and in order to overcome those, tasks have to be completed. But we want to make sure that all of that isn't just living in your brain or living in your team member's brain, because that can be very, very stressful. So even though there's always going to be tasks, I don't want you to feel like there's a never-ending to-do list, because there's just a better way to organize it. And if you don't have organizational systems in your schools, then balls get dropped, right? And that can be super frustrating, especially if you do have an idea laid out, but it hasn't been properly communicated to your team and it's not documented. That is the key. All right. And I think a lot of people need help with organization. I think there's, you got like your type A personalities that maybe naturally are more organized. But for those of you that might not be naturally like a type A personality, you just kind of don't know where to start. So today I'm going to give you a starting point. One of my favorite quotes by Edmund Burke: good order is the foundation of all things. So let's lay that foundation. This, is something that over the last 12 years of being an entrepreneur that I've had to learn the hard way, that you have to train your team on how to be more organized, especially if you are one of those type A personalities where organization just comes naturally to you. You can't just think that that's how everybody else on your team is going to operate. Okay. So if what I'm kind of throwing down you're resonating with today, I would potentially have your team watch this recording to help get them trained up on how to be more organized. And there are tons of skill assessments that you can use to identify weak areas. And this is something that I don't see a lot of martial arts school owners do when they are in the hiring process. I mean, a lot of schools don't even really have a hiring process. For those of you that are scaling and opening multiple locations, that is super important to have a structured hiring process. And it's very rare that I see school owners actually have skill assessments, right? If you're hiring somebody for the front desk or you're hiring somebody for sales or a program director, there are skill assessments that you can have them take online. One of my favorites is called the Kolbe assessment. I'll drop it down. And what Kolbe does is it basically assesses them on how much of a quick start they are, what level of follow through do they have, right? Probably important for the person that's working at the front desk to have a high level of follow through. Are they a fact finder, right? Are they going to go out and do the research? And it's a really cool assessment that will show you what their strengths are and what their weaknesses are as well. And besides Kolbe, there are lots of other skill assessments that you can have your team take to see what are their strengths and their weaknesses. But at the end of the day, you got to lead by example, guys. All right. And I find that the better organized we are in our business, the more energy we're going to have for life in general. And that's what I want you to have. I want you to have the utmost energy for life so that it doesn't feel like the business is sucking it out. So the first thing we need to talk about, number one, if you're taking notes, is this concept of categorizing. And what I find is that most schools, their job description is more like kind of like a checklist than it is an actual job description. And what I have found with job descriptions for my team and what they resonate with the best are their tasks that are their responsibilities, but broken down in, is this supposed to be done daily? Is it supposed to be done weekly? Is it supposed to be done quarterly? Is this an annual task? And when you can categorize it, and it's, I'm not saying you have to do this. I would do, if you don't have job descriptions and you haven't kind of started this route, I would do this with them. It's not something you should just do. But you do a brain dump of all of the responsibilities of the role, right? So let's say you're hiring for a program director or front desk assistant. What are all of the responsibilities? And the way that it makes sense in my mind is to ask, okay, well, what are the things I need them to do daily? Like every single day, this has to happen. And then there are things that don't need to be done every day, but there are things that need to be done weekly. What are the things in our school that need to be done weekly? So you do this brain dump and you categorize it by the daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annual tasks, right? Well, Chris, what's a quarterly, right? Well, do you do quarterly meetings? That would be on there. Do you do quarterly employee performance assessments? That would be on there. Maybe you have your team doing cleaning every week, but every quarter you want to do a big in-depth cleaning where, type of cleaning where you're getting up on a ladder and you're cleaning the fans, right? Or maybe the air filters need to be changed out quarterly, right? So when you do a brain dump and then you can categorize these into the daily, weekly, monthly, and quarterly, it's going to allow your team to hold themselves more accountable. So what does this look like, right? I'm sure you're wondering. Well, this is an actual job description. This is our chief instructor job description at Gracie Pack. And as you can see, it has some general information at the top, the position title, what's their work area, who do they report to, are they supervising anybody? And then what does that position goal look like? What is the ultimate goal of this position? And then we have their key functions and responsibilities broken down daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, and annually. So when we are hiring for this position, or when we're onboarding for this position, or maybe you have somebody that's already in this position, but you're trying to get more organized with what responsibilities they have, this is a great way to lay it out. And now they know, okay, on a day-to-day basis, this is what I'm responsible for. On a weekly basis, this is what I'm responsible for, so on and so forth. And I have seen a lot of different job templates, guys. This is the one that I have found works the absolute best. So I want you to consider, if you haven't done this for particular positions, and I would start with the position that you need the most help with, right? Maybe you are responsible for all the front desk activities and eventually you want to delegate that out to somebody. Start with that position, the one that you need the most help with. And again, just breaking it down and categorizing it daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, I have found for our team members is incredibly helpful. Okay. Second organizational strategy is breaking the monotony. All right. Every day your team comes in, every day you come in, and there are certain things that absolutely need to be done. But what we decided to do to kind of break up we'll feel like we're doing the same thing over and over again, is we actually assign themes to each day of the week. So these are examples. Don't feel like this is what you should absolutely copy. But on Monday is typically when we had our meeting day, right? We have our meetings with our full-time employees, our program director, chief instructor, senior instructor. And then we also have a meeting before class takes place with the instructor team. So Monday is really meeting day. It's where we get to assess the previous week and plan for that week. Tuesday could be your marketing day, right? And I'm not saying like Tuesday should be the only day you follow up with your leads. Of course not. That should be on their daily tasks. But maybe Tuesday you focus more on specific marketing actions. Maybe that's your program director is going to go to other local businesses and put rack cards, or they're going to deliver the coloring page sheets to some restaurants, or they're going to check in with the partners in education JV partnerships that your team has. Wednesday could be training day. And I think where a big mistake a lot of schools make is that they think their meetings are trainings. And those should actually be two completely different things. So when I say training, it could be on the mat training for the instructors, whether that's reviewing lesson plans, coming up with new drills, role playing, behavioral challenges. And then you also have the off the mat training, which could be, role playing the phone scripts, role playing your enrollment processes. But Wednesday could be the training day. Maybe Thursday is your retention day, right? That's the day you're going to do your good job cards or your missing in action cards. And maybe Friday is a culture day. So this is just an example of assigning a theme to each day that really kind of helps break the monotony. And when you assign a theme, and people are able to kind of work on similar activities all at the same time, it really reduces the decision fatigue and helps to create focus and ultimately builds productivity by grouping similar tasks together. Oftentimes, if you're not using time blocking, which we're going to talk about in a second, or your team isn't, they're constantly jumping from one thing to the next thing. And certain tasks have specific energy that we have to bring to that task. So when you can theme it or group it together, you actually get more productive as opposed to, oh, let me follow up with this lead and then I'm going to go clean over here and then, oh, I got to go check the mail, versus just grouping all of those similar actions together. So I'm a big fan of theming it. We do this at GrowPro as well. Monday is our meeting day. Tuesday is a deep focus day, so we don't schedule any meetings. Wednesday is a training day. Thursday is another deep focus day. And then Friday is our culture day. So consider kind of looking at the week and can you theme specific days? And maybe you just start with, all right, Monday's going to be meeting day and Wednesday's going to be our training day. Okay. Tip number 3, assigning time to tasks. Anytime somebody tells me they feel like they don't have enough time in the day, the first thing I tell them they need to do is they need to, track your time and do a time audit tracking. And basically what that means is you have a spreadsheet broken down into 15-minute increments, and you write in what you're doing every 15 minutes. And probably a few hours into it, the kind of light bulb goes off for most people that they realize they do have a ton of time. They're just not prioritizing it properly. So I'm a huge fan of time blocking, and all that means is you assign tasks to specific blocks of time each day. And you just start with the things that you absolutely know need to happen, right? You're going to have specific meetings. You know that there is going to be a specific time that you want the cleaning done in the school. And you can take all of those tasks that you're responsible for and also the daily and weekly tasks that your team is responsible for and have them build out their time block. And it's really important that you group the similar items together. So like if we're doing lead follow-up, I want to make sure that all the lead follow-up is occurring on the phone, via text message, via email. If there's any maybe like written follow-up that we need to do because we're going to mail out postcards, but you want to group those similar activities together so they're not task switching back and forth because you lose a lot of time and productivity. Now, I get the question often, and especially for like a program director position, which is a reactive position, right? Like, let's say your program director is supposed to be doing inventory from 12 to 1 and a walk-in happens or the phone rings. Can't really just, ignore that because, hey, it's supposed to be, inventory time. With reactive positions like that, especially ones that are customer facing, you have to prioritize that. But what the time block allows you to do is to get back on track once you're handling whatever reaction that came in. And now okay, now I'm going to get back to finishing the inventory. And what's important when you're doing time blocking, I see this mistake a lot, is people do like back to back to back to back because they want to fit in as much as possible on their calendar, but they forget that life happens, right? So what you should be building in is like anywhere between 15 to 30 minute, Kelly Murray calls it F up time, the F up fairy time, right? Something is going to happen. Your phone's going to ring, something personal. So you want to actually build those little buffer times into the calendar as well. And that will be really helpful. And you also need to understand it's a guide, right? Like it's not, if you have something on there from 12 to 1 and, it's 1 o'clock, but the next thing that you're doing, it's not a meeting. Maybe you're going from inventory to needing to clean the school. If you have a few minutes left to finish the thing that's on your time block, you can do it. You don't have to be super rigid, but it's just a guideline. And I think, depending on your personality and how you want to have this set up in your school, I personally use Google Calendar. Google Calendar is my boss. I use this personally, and we use it in the businesses. And I love it because you can color coordinate it. And I'm a big fan of color coordination because then you can look at the calendar and you can see where the majority of your time is being spent. Okay. So if you're not doing time blocking for yourself or for your team, I would recommend doing that. And the best way to do this is to get buy-in from your team. So it's not like I'm suggesting you sit there and create their entire time block and then give it to them. When we created time blocks for our chief instructor and senior instructor and assistant instructors and program directors, we did it together. Because when you do it together, you're going to get better buy-in and you're also going to get feedback from them. So every single one of our positions has a time block. And this is also really helpful when you're onboarding new employees, or maybe you have, an assistant instructor who's going to be promoted to a head instructor. They actually have, okay, this is what your ideal week should look like. All right. So huge fan of time blocking. Let me know, yes or no, are you using time blocking, whether that's personally or in your school? Yes or no in the chat. Lindsay says, love Google Calendar. Me too. All right, cool. Seeing a lot of yeses. Mr. Neville says no, but his time, he personally doesn't. I time block personally, no. Okay, guys, I think this is a really big game changer to have time blocks based off of a position so that your team knows, well, what are the expectations from 2 to 3 or 3 to 3:30, so on and so forth, okay? And then that brings us to Google Calendar. So one of the big things when I wanted to become an offsite owner, and when I say offsite owner, that just meant like I wasn't in the school, Monday through Friday all day during prime time, especially because I wanted to be able to eat dinner with my family. We decided to basically take all of the events and meetings, marketing actions, when we're closed, when somebody has PTO, when birthdays are, when work anniversaries are. And we plugged it into the calendar. And the way that we would do this is at the end of the year, we do our annual planning. So we actually plan for the full next year. And we plug in all of these really important dates. And I think a lot of schools use Google Calendar, maybe specific for like your events, right? Oh, we've got a parent night out event. Let me plug that into the calendar. We've got a graduation ceremony. Let me plug that into the calendar. And that's like kind of level one. The next level to this are the marketing actions that need to occur for the events to be successful. And also those weekly activities, bi-weekly activities, monthly activities that you want your team to do. So this is a screenshot of one of the months, and you're going to notice that there's a lot of grayed out items. And when we first build it in, we color coordinate it. So like marketing actions would be green, events would be orange, meetings would be yellow. And then whenever that item is done, the person who's responsible for it would go in and change the color to gray. And that's how I was able to know, oh, okay, they created and printed the 4x4s for the in-house tournament. They created the Facebook event for the piano. They created all of the sign-up sheets. I mean, when you think of all of the different marketing actions that have to take place when you are doing an event, there's a lot that can be kind of, fall through the cracks. So once we planned the entire year out, my program director would then take all of those marketing actions, all of the events, and put them into the Google Calendar, right? Another really helpful thing is like plugging in when ordering is supposed to happen, right? How often does it, like, oh, you got a piano coming up and maybe it's a ninja nunchuck night and you got to order nunchucks from Century and it's like a week before and you forgot to do that because it wasn't listed anywhere. And kind of going through this process of building out the Google Calendar for the entire year, it takes a few hours, but then once it's done, it's done. And if that might seem super overwhelming doing it for an entire year, then just break it down by quarter and go quarter by quarter. But this was an absolute game changer for me and lowering my stress and my anxiety, knowing that, hey, my team knows these are the things that have got to get done on a day-to-day basis. And when I look at that Google Calendar and I see that it was changed to the color gray, that means it's done. If it's still a different color, if it's still, its normal color, that means it didn't get done. And this was just really built my confidence in ensuring that the things that were delegated to the team actually got done. Okay. All right. Next up, getting on the same page. If you've been following me for a while, you know that I'm a huge fan of EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And guys, there are many different ways to run your meetings. I have absolutely fell in love with this model of the level 10, and we could do an entire session just on the level 10. I don't care what agenda you use, as long as you have a weekly non-negotiable meeting with your key players on your team. And the key words in that are non-negotiables. I know when I first started in my school back in 2012, it's like sometimes we would have a meeting, sometimes we wouldn't. Like if you are doing meetings on Mondays, a lot of federal holidays fall on Mondays. And if that was the case, then we just wouldn't even have a meeting that week. And like that wasn't super smart. So no matter what agenda you are using, you need to be able to get on the same page with your team. And that is the purpose of the meeting. And when you don't have a structured agenda to the meeting, it often feels like meetings are huge wastes of time. Okay. If you're ever feeling like your meeting is a huge waste of time, it's because you have not structured it in an ideal way. And when we want to have a very efficient meeting, you need to have all of the data present. That's one of the biggest time sucks out of meetings is maybe you want to discuss like, okay, what was our lead to appointment ratio? What was our show to close ratio? How many trials did we close? How many renewals did we get? And then you're in the meeting and you want that information, but the person has to go and dig it up. It's a huge waste of time. So whether you use the level 10 or you use something else, the data has to be prepared before the meeting. That is key. The second thing is you have to have the right people in the meeting. Okay. Sometimes we have people in the meeting that maybe don't need to be there. And sometimes we have people that absolutely need to be there and they're not. And, post COVID, everybody knows how to work Zoom. So if you wanted to have, your meetings earlier in the day when the team isn't in the business, you can absolutely do the meeting on Zoom. Okay. So you've got to have the data, you got to have the right people, and you got to have an agenda. And I think this is the best agenda, the level 10. You start with a check-in sharing good news and personal win. So business win and personal win. Guys, this is so important for setting meetings off on the right foot. Sometimes maybe somebody's having a bad day, they had a rough morning, and now they got to go in a meeting. When you ask people to think about positive, it can help shift their mindset and the energy that they show up and bring to the meeting. So kick it off like, hey, share some a personal win and share your business win for the last week. And that's the segue. That's just a quick check-in. Then we go into the scorecard, and that's when you're looking at all of the data that was already prepared. So whatever it is, right? If it's how many trials, how many new students, how many refunds did we have, whatever the KPIs are that you want, you have those laid out. But here's the key, and this is the big mistake that everybody makes. When you're talking about the data, it's not the time to solve the problem of the data. We're just presenting what the scorecard is, what the KPIs are. And if a KPI is off, maybe you had 10 appointments show up and come and you only enrolled one. That's a 10% close rate. That is not a KPI I think you or your team would be proud of. So if that's the case, if that KPI is off, we're not going to discuss it right then and there. We're going to discuss it later when we get to the issues list. So any of the scorecard that's off, any of those KPIs, you don't discuss it then because then the meeting gets all of these different side quests. Okay. Then we go into a rock review, which if you're doing projects in your business, we just review, where are we with the project? We go over customer and employee headlines. If you're a school owner that's not in the school every single day, this is a really great way for you to get on the same page of what's going on with the students. Maybe Johnny broke his arm skateboarding, or, Jacob, who normally doesn't get great behavior marks on his report card, brought the report card in and he got, straight A behavior marks. Okay. So it's the good, the bad, and the ugly for the headlines of your customers and your employees. Then you go into the to-do list. And this is so important, guys. How often do we have a meeting? In order to solve a problem, there's an action step that has to happen. There's a task that has to be completed, right? And then we go end the meeting. Everybody knows what those action steps are, but then the thing just doesn't get done. And it's because you don't have a specific section of the meeting that talks about the previous week's action steps that were supposed to get done. And we call those to-dos. All right. So we're going to go through all of the to-dos that were assigned in the previous week's meeting. And man, it's not fun for an employee or for you as the owner to get asked, hey, did this thing get done? And now in front of my peers, I have to say no. So it holds the team accountable to getting those action steps done. Once we go through the to-dos, we then IDS. We identify, we discuss, and we solve any issues. And anybody on the team is allowed to bring issues and ideas. This is how you create a culture of feedback in your company. And this is the bulk of the meeting. So if, one of the scorecards, our close rate is at 10%, we got to drop that down to the issues list and let's discuss what happened with the other 9 students. Pull up the appointment spreadsheet. Let's go through them one by one. And maybe you found out that the program director didn't do any follow-up with those 9 students you didn't close, right? So that's the bulk of the meeting. And then we conclude the meeting. We'll recap any to-dos that need to get done for the next meeting. Any cascading messages. That's a big one, right? Maybe you're making a change to a system and some of the assistant instructors, aren't in that meeting because they're part-time, but you need to let them know. That's a cascading message. So what are the cascading messages that the rest of the team need to know? And then finally, we rate it 1 to 10. So again, I could do an entire session just on this level 10. I truly believe this is by far the best meeting agenda I've ever come across. Whether you use it or not, I hope you understand the concept of you need to have all of the data prepared prior to the meeting. We're not searching for the data during the meeting. You need to have the right people and you need to have an agenda. And if you have those 3 things, you are going to be able to get everybody on the same page and you're going to be able to hold people accountable. Okay. Let me see we just had our 3rd quarter EOS review. EOS was a game changer for our entire business. We also have our trial list, lookout list, renewal list, MIA list on the table. I love it. Absolutely. I've been using your templates since the first time you presented it at the conference. Works great. Awesome. All right, guys. This is a huge unlock in terms of organization in your school, guys. I am just not a fan, and I'm a part of other organizations that have meetings that don't follow EOS or the level 10, and it's just like people talking in circles for an hour, and it doesn't feel like anything gets done. And that's the last thing you want in your business and the last thing you want your team to feel, okay? So next up, the daily wrap-up. I missed rocks. Can you complete? Yeah, so a rock is a 90-day project. So whatever, at the beginning of the quarter, whatever you committed to getting complete. So what could that look like? Maybe you want to level up your storm team, your special team of role models, and you need to come up with 12 new trainings, right? That's something that it's probably going to take some time. Maybe there's other people that are going to be involved. So it's a rock. It is a 90-day project. Another example would be maybe you want to repaint the school, right? That would be a 90-day project. Or maybe you want to redo your inventory closet. So anything that it's going to take more than a few days, it's a project. We call that a rock. And during the level 10 meeting, anybody that is owning a rock is responsible for that rock. We're just going to ask them, are you on track or off track to finishing the rock by the end of the 90 days? And if they say they're off track, then we're going to drop it down to the issues list and we're going to talk about it when we get to issues. So they're just projects, okay? Okay. Daily wrap up. This is so simple. Every single one of you can implement this starting today. And it's just an end of day report, end of day summary, whatever you want to call it. You can, depending on your setup, this could be emailed to you. This could be texted to you. If you're using Slack, this could be Slack to you. But you just create a template of what is the information that me as the owner, I want to get.
Yeah, I'm going to try.
Sorry, let me mute everybody. What is the information that I want to get as the owner from the key players on the team at the end of the day, so I have a pulse on how the business did that day, right? And this is really great if you have multiple locations. You can't be in every location at once. Maybe you're not there. Maybe you're on vacation, whatever it is. So I gave you an example here of what the template could look like, but it's your personal, information that you want. So maybe it's some key KPIs, right? Like how many appointments showed up? How many did we close? Did we sell any trials? Did any renewals happen? Were there any upgrades, right? So maybe like some of the big KPIs you want to know. Maybe you want to know what the team completed that day or what they're working on, or were there any roadblocks or any notes that you should know, right? Hey, I had a conversation with Johnny's mom. They're thinking of canceling. We think we can save this by, offering a couple of free private lessons. Are you okay with that? Okay. This is incredibly useful for you to have a pulse on what's going on. We have our program director send an end of day, and we also have the chief instructor send an end of day. So they're two different templates because what the chief instructor is reporting on is different than what the program director is reporting on. So chief instructor, what was the active count for the day? So what did the attendance look like? Were there any injuries? How many upgrade nominations went out? So those are just kind of some examples of KPIs that you could have the chief instructor submit. We personally use Slack, which we're going to talk about here in a minute, but this could be emailed to you or it could be texted to you. If you're not having your team send an end of day wrap up, I highly recommend it. It's a great kind of end of day ritual that allows them to tie a bow on their day. And can also help set them up for success for the next day, because maybe you have something in there like, what are you focusing on tomorrow? Okay. This literally will take your team less than 5 minutes and is going to provide you with a lot of great information about what happened in the day to day if you're not there. Okay. So we call it an end of day report, but it's your daily wrap up. Next up, and let me just pause here because I think I've gone through 5 or 6. Any questions so far? So far, so good. Great info as always. Appreciate that, sir. All right, here we go. Next up, closing loops. Man, this is a big one for business owners. I don't know about you, but I get ideas all the time when I'm in the shower, when I'm driving, when I'm working out, when I'm going for a walk. And those ideas end up taking a lot of real estate in your head. And one of the best things that I implemented, and I've posted about this in the Martial Arts Entrepreneurs group. I think I have a podcast episode coming out on it, but it's this concept of lists, using a list, right? And I don't think a list alone is enough. I think you need a list and then those items need to go into your time block. But oftentimes somebody just has like a to-do list, and it's that never-ending list. And the problem with that is that there's no prioritization of what needs to get done first. So I created this, I call it the power list, and I use a Google Doc. Why do I use a Google Doc? Well, because I can access a Google Doc on my phone, and Google Docs has a setting that you can click on that makes it accessible if you don't have Wi-Fi. So regardless if I have Wi-Fi or not, if I'm, in an airplane, I can still access this list. And simple scales, fancy fails. And, I know some people are really big and a pen and paper or maybe a day planner, but then what happens if you don't have it with you, right? So I know it's going to be a pretty rare occurrence that I don't have my phone. So I use a Google Doc because it's just super simple, okay? And it's broken down into these areas. At the top, actually, let me start at the bottom, right? Got just a little notes section that just sometimes something pops up and I don't want to forget it. I'll just put it under the notes section. It can just live there, okay? Then I have an open list. And these are all of the ideas. And as, visionaries, we're constantly coming up with ideas. And one of the things that I had to really kind of start reeling in as my team got bigger and bigger is just word vomiting my ideas on them and making them, forcing them to make that a priority. Because if you're doing annual meetings, if you're doing quarterly meetings with your team, your roadmap for the quarter already should have been laid out. And you got to be careful not to add too much in if it's not a priority that's going to help you reach whatever your 1-year goal is. So if I go to a conference, if I'm listening to a podcast or reading a book, and I just have an idea, whether it's for the future or it would be nice, I put it in the open list. And it's great because now it doesn't take brain real estate in my head. All right. I have a personal assistant, but I also work with a lot of team members. And if there is something that I'm working on that I need assistance from somebody else, I put it under the assist column, right? Maybe I'm starting the project, but I got to hand it off to somebody else, or I'm waiting for a response for somebody. Anything that I need assistance from, waiting for someone else to complete, I put it in here, okay? And then I have my closed list. And these are things that are going to get done later in the week, but they're not super prioritized for today. And then at the top, I have my power list. These are the 5 things that absolutely need to get done today. And what's really cool about this list is things start from the open list, they work their way to the closed list, and then they work their way to the power list. And it constantly feels like I have this momentum, and it allows me to maintain focus. Okay, these are the 5 things I absolutely got to get done. It reduces overwhelm because it's not living in my head. Just the simple concept of putting it down somewhere. And I can't tell you how often I have things on the open list that a month later, I end up just deleting because it's just not important anymore. And it gives me clear, actionable priorities. So guys, there's lots of different ways that you can keep lists. This is what I have found has worked really well. And this is something that we train our entire team on. So every single person on my team has a power list that is bookmarked in their bookmarks, and they can open that up, and every day they know, okay, these are the top 5 things I need to work on, but later this week in my closed list, this is going to be the focus. And this has been just super helpful. And I just really love the simplicity of it, because simple scales, fancy fails. Okay. You can talk to Google Docs. So if you're driving, that is right. You can talk to Google Docs. Traction is good read, EOS, staff meetings, free online account. Yep. Traction is the book that kicked it off. I think they have 7 total books in the library of EOS, but Traction is definitely the number 1 you would want to read. Okay. Next up, easy access for all. I'm a big proponent of using a Google Drive. And what I often see, a lot of owners, they have all of the important documents, whether that's templates, whether that's SOPs, and they live in a file on their laptop. And your team needs access to something. Maybe you're running low on schedules, and your program director wants to go print the schedule, but the schedule file lives on your computer and they don't have any access to it. And I might sound passionate about it because that owner was me. And for the first, I don't know, maybe like 5 or 6 years of operating my business, all of the important documents were on my laptop. All you need to do is put the document in the Google Drive, and now you can share it with people that need access to it. So literally every document in our business, all of our paperwork, lives inside of our Google Drive. We have an organized folder structure. You want to use specific naming conventions. If you're concerned about permission access, you can set up permission access, but it really helps reduce time spent looking for documents. So if you are that school owner that all of the important files are living on your computer, I urge you, put it in a Google Drive. All right. It might take a couple of hours to get this set up. It's, a freemium tool, meaning they give you a certain amount of space for free. If you need to buy more space, it's like $1 or $2 a month. But man, how annoying is it when, I'm sure you've been in a situation where, like, okay, you want to dive into a certain thing that, you had planned to do, but then you don't have access to whatever the document is. And now you got to go bother somebody else to go get it. Have your team have access to all of it with a Google Drive. Super simple, guys. Doesn't cost you any money, and it's just going to streamline all of the efficiencies in your school. Okay. Got a private message here. Going back to closing loops for a sec. Where do you track finished items from Power List? I love crossing things off my list. Yeah, I just delete it. Once it's done, that's it. It's out, and then the next thing starts moving up. Good question. I understand that whole that feeling, the euphoric feeling of literally scratching something off. And I used to be pen and paper, and then I went to iPad, and now I just use my Google Calendar and the Power List. So it's just the delete button now is the check off. Since we have 3 locations, we use Dropbox Family, share files from our primary account to each individual school account. Some folders are shared, some are specific to location. Love it, right? Whether it's Dropbox, whether it's Google Drive, I don't care, guys. It just should live in the cloud somewhere where you can easily provide access to whomever needs it. All right. Okay. Let's take this home because this is going to be epic for you. So I don't call them SOPs. I call them playbooks. I think most people, what they would call an SOP is typically a checklist, and that's not the best way. I use this 4C because I like alliteration and my name starts with a C. I believe the perfect playbook has a content table, a camcorder method, course documentation, and checklist. So let me break each one down, and then I'm going to show you how to use ChatGPT to cut your time in more than half. So at the top, we have the content table, okay? And this just has whatever the process name is. It's important. Like nomenclature is so important that everybody is speaking the same language in your school. So whatever the process name is, if you're doing the 4-step enrollment process, that's your sales process, everybody needs to know that's what it's called. 4-step enrollment process. We don't call it the sales process. So what is the name? When was it created? How often is this happening? Is it every day? Is it once a week? Is it once a month? And then the context. Why is it important? Like, why do we have this process? Who owns it? Is it the program director team? Is it the instructor team? Is it the leadership team? And we also give reference numbers because we have a reference table as well for our playbooks. If you update the process, because nothing's ever written in stone, right? Especially if like you're doing playbooks for your CRM and then they make a change in the CRM and you got to update it. What's the time estimate? Ooh, that's a good one, right? Like if you have a cleaning crew and, one of the processes is cleaning the bathrooms, what's the time estimate? Should it take them 45 minutes? Should it take them 10 minutes? Estimate it. And then they know that's the expectation. Hey, this bathroom should be cleaned in 10 minutes. Okay. And then what tools are needed, right? If this is how to input a new student into your CRM, well, what are they going to need access to, right? Well, they're going to need access to the CRM. Maybe you had a paper contract. If it's cleaning, like what do they need? Do they need a mop? Do they need a bucket? Do they need Windex, right? So what are the tools? So that's the content table. Then you have the camcorder method, and this is a video of the thing getting done. If the process occurs on a computer, I would recommend using Loom, Loom. You could also use Zoom and just share the screen and record, but I prefer Loom, and I'm going to show you why in a second. Can I share this template with us? Yes, ma'am, I can. So it's just a video of the thing getting done, all right? Now, we have a playbook for opening the school, right? All of the things that need to happen when we open the school, guess what we did? We filmed a video with the phone on how to open the school. What light switches need to be turned on? We have 3 different air conditioning units. Where are they? So in a case where the person that normally opens the school can't, we got a playbook if somebody else has to step in to do that. Okay, so you got the video. Then you have the course documentation, and this is every single little step of the process, the high-level steps, and then the sub-bullet point steps. And then finally, we have the checklist. And the checklist is just, how do I know this was completed properly? Okay. Well, did you sweep the floors? Yes. Did you mop the floors? Yes. Right. If it's a lesson, maybe you're doing a playbook on the perfect lesson plan, right? Did you collect the attendance cards? Yes. Did you greet every new student? Yes. The checklist is really the high-level steps that are inside of the course documentation. Okay. So we at GrowPro, I think we have over 500 playbooks. At Gracie Pack, we probably have around 200 to 250 playbooks. And this was not something that I did. This was something that we got the entire team together to do this. But this, I believe, is the best template for your SOPs, for your playbooks. So how can we make this not, seem like this is going to take a decade to get done? This is how. Okay, so I'm actually going to walk you through these steps. Let me just move this over here. So when you record something, okay, and this is why I like Loom. When you record something on Loom, and Loom is free, by the way, it's a freemium, so certain features are free and then you can pay. When you record something, it gives you a transcript over here, okay? And we're going to use this transcript here in a second to build out the SOP. So I'm going to go into ChatGPT, and I just have this document right here, and I have this in the keynote for you as well, so you can literally just copy and paste it. But I'm going to grab this here, and I'm going to plug it into ChatGPT. says, I'm going to give you information about internal SOPs and processes for GrowPro agency. Note and acknowledge, do not respond, wait for further instructions. Cool. Now I'm going to give it further instructions. I'm going to provide a video transcript from the video walkthrough I made. Note and acknowledge, do not respond, wait for further instructions. Cool. Well, now I'm going to go into Loom and I'm going to grab that transcript and I'm going to copy it. Just going to hit copy here. Now I'm going to go back to ChatGPT, and in the prompt, this is the video transcript. That's where I insert the Loom, and I'm going to paste it in. And I hit enter. Noted and acknowledged, waiting for further instructions. Now I'm going to tell it the SOP should be formatted in a step-by-step bullet point with sub-bullet points and reference the name of the process. Well, the name of this process, we call it the GPA written boosted campaign, content campaign. So whatever the name of the process is, I'm going to hit enter, noted and acknowledged, and now I tell it, write the SOP. And guess what it's going to do? It's going to take that transcript, and it is going to write and pump out the step-by-step of everything that was said in the video. And now I can copy that, and I can put it into the course documentation in the playbook. Now, we're not done yet, right? Because the playbook also has a checklist. So now I'm going to say, take the main bullet points and turn it into a checklist in a question format with only the high-level steps provided. And it's going to do exactly that. And now here is the checklist. So now I can copy and paste that checklist into the checklist area. I can copy and paste the course documentation. I can put the Loom link in, and now really all I have to do is fill out the content table. So I have that prompt. Guys, I can't tell you how much time this has saved us in terms of building out SOPs, but it's huge. And you should no longer have to sit there and type out your systems and processes step by step, because you can just have ChatGPT do it once you record a video. So super helpful, super useful, and can cut it all your time down. All right. So hopefully you found some value in that. The last thing I want to talk to you about as we wrap up here is communicating like a professional. You know, as your team scales, you know, I know Mr. Neville's here. He's got 3 schools. Ms. Chapman, she's got 3 schools. You know, texting employees, I think also, especially if you have underage employees, it just lacks a level of professionalism. And group text, kind of the same thing. Emails get lost. And there's a platform called Slack. It's also a freemium tool, so you can absolutely use it for free. And what it does, it allows you to streamline interactions by creating channels. And the channels basically help you categorize conversations. So if you want to have a conversation about events, maybe you have an upcoming P&O, if there's specific information for the front desk or for the instructors or for inventory, if you want new students to be, like anytime you sign up a new student, that information gets put in. You could have a positivity channel. You can see here we have our EOD. That's our end of day. And this is locked so that only the people that have access to the channel can actually see it. And you're just going to get faster communication, and it reduces the reliance of having group text messages and emails. And, you know, as you can see, I'm a part of quite a few different Slack communities here. But this has just really allowed us to professionalize the communication, talk to each other faster, categorize those conversations. And you have these public channels. You can also have private channels, and you can also have direct messages, which act just like a text message as well. What I love, you can schedule messages. So maybe you have an idea that pops up, but it's after hours and you don't want to reach out to your team member because you shouldn't, because they're not working. You can schedule a message, which is really cool. And it has searchability functions in there. So if you know, maybe posted something a couple of weeks ago and want to look it up, you can search inside of Slack. And there's an app, so everybody on your team can put it on their phone. It's just been such a game changer for comms for us in Gracie Pack and at GrowPro that highly recommend we consider doing that. Okay, so there you have it. Those are your 10 productivity strategies. Categorizing tasks. And as I go through this, I want to know which one's your number one. Okay. Categorizing the tasks with the daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, or annual job descriptions. Theming the day, help you kind of break up the monotony with theming the days of the week. Using time blocking, using a Google Calendar for accountability and color coordinating. Implementing some form of meeting. I recommend the level 10. Sending EOD, so you have a daily wrap up. Using a power list to close those open loops. Sharing with either a Google Drive, Dropbox, whatever works best for you so that everybody has access to the documents that they need. Setting up your playbooks, and I shared with you my ChatGPT prompt to help you really cut down the time on that. And then finally, communicating like a professional with Slack. So let me know. You can put the numbers, you can type it in. Mr. Landrum, 7 and 9, which is the power list, and playbooks, love it. Mr. Pickett, theming the days, and then 7 and 8, very good. We got one for playbooks. Just learned how to use Google Tasks for power lists. It's amazing, love it. Conference 5, yes, the level 10 meeting. Oh, it's such a big unlock. 9 for sure with ChatGPT. Cool. All right, guys. So there you have it. That's how you can own the day, 10 different organizational systems for your school's success. Hopefully you have a takeaway. Now that's not enough, right? If knowledge was enough, we'd all have 6-packs and be driving around in Lamborghinis. We got to go take action now. So just pick one, take action. We will get the keynote sent out, and we will also put the template for the playbook in there. And you guys will get that before the end of day. We will be emailing it out. So if you registered, which you wouldn't be on this call if you didn't, we will send it to the email before end of day. All right, guys. I get to see some of you next week. Can't wait. Have a beautiful day. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.